Before we jump in anticipation of this, I took a lot of notes and kind of created what I thought were either positives, negatives, or opportunities. Just trying to maximize the time because I really do want you guys, your opinions on this stuff. So what I'll do as well is, John always feverishly takes notes. So I'll take whatever he takes from what you suggest and I'll add them to this. And then I'll email a PDF of this to everyone so that you have all that. So that down the road, if you come up with any other ideas or thoughts, I'd love to have those. So. And I also want to mention John Grimaldi is with us today. If you guys didn't see on the iChapel yesterday, John's been an intern with us in Shine, and we've kind of tweaked a little bit of his time to where he could spend some time with circle groups, helping me kind of with the front end process with all the people who express interest, helping them know what options are available across the board throughout the chapel in all the different small group opportunities. And then if they choose circle groups, to kind of run them through our process, from initial contact all the way to, hey, we started a brand new group with you guys. Or in fewer cases, placing them in existing groups. We'll talk some about that in a minute. So that's why John's here. So each of you, especially those of you who have adult small group portions of your ministries, will start to hear from him. It may be his email address or it may be circlegroups@chapel.com, but that's why he's here. And so be nice to him because he's nice. All right, so what I wanted to do, because we've had a significant amount of change over the last several months, I'm going to read a couple things to you and explain a couple things to you about how circle groups work, and then we'll jump right into this. Is that okay?
That sounds great.
So what are circle groups? Here's how it reads on the website and how we're stating it. Circle groups are communities of 8 to 12 adults who come together to explore how they can better engage their circles of influence for the sake of the gospel. They typically meet in people's homes twice per month. The driving question being addressed in these communities is not what can I learn. The driving question is how can I live out my faith. Each of us have circles of people that we engage, family, friends, co-workers, neighbors, etc. It's our hope that these groups help you clarify your circles and better represent the gospel within them. Some groups engage in community projects together, other groups do not, but encourage each other within their own individual circles. Whatever the case, we want to engage the world around us and make a difference. The placement process, just so you know, I alluded to it a few moments ago, but now if someone says, hey, we're interested in getting involved in a circle group, and recently, if you didn't hear, both the Lockport campus and the Cross Point campus kind of joined together, so there's just kind of one deal called circle groups, and it all comes to the same thing. Everybody from both campuses, their information is going to go through John and myself, and that's how they're going to get involved in the group. Now, they will most likely still be in a group, hopefully, in their area, but it's kind of all one deal. If someone expressed interest, whether it's on a card or whether it's an email to us or the kiosk, or one of you say, hey, this guy wants to know about groups and you hand me a name or whatever, it all goes through the same process. The first step is, like I said, we show them what all is available to them and then let them self-identify based on those options. What do they think for their life right now they need the most? And we direct them there. We do tend to push people away from multiple groups if we can. Again, everyone's life's different, so we can't claim to know what someone should do, but we really press that, the idea is relationships that provoke you to action. So don't get involved in 5 groups every week and spend all your time just huddled around the scripture. We want what you read in the scripture to provoke you to go out and represent the gospel in your life. So then, rather than just getting their information, looking at our existing groups, which right now there's about 83, and that's always going up and down. Old groups are going away, and new groups are getting started. As of today, it's about 83. Rather than just going, hey, this person would be good for that group, our first hope is that we'll pull them up, and every 2 months, so every 8 weeks, we have an introductions meeting. Now, from within 48 hours of getting their information, they hear a first contact from us so that they're not waiting for 2 months. They know what the steps are, and they know when it's coming. And they know from the beginning that what's going to happen is we're going to gather them together, and most of those meetings, there's about 20 to 30 people. So it's an environment kind of like this. I talk about what circle groups are. I separate them based on geography first, and we'll talk some more about that in a few minutes, but hopefully that they live in the same area. But then there's other factors that you have to consider, stage of life and their specific needs, things like that. And then from within that group, hey, who's going to host? Who's going to open up their house and be the host of that group? So it's not a predetermined leadership to where we're kind of always training the next leader. That's not the route that we're going with these groups. We're letting just someone be the one that opens up their home, so it's kind of flat within the group. So within the group, they're all kind of on equal ground that way, and someone hosts. We'll talk some more about that as well. So our emphasis is on new groups and the host approach. Now, right now, the hosts they really are leaders to some degree because they serve as the communication point between the staff and what goes on in that group. So to that degree, they are a leader. But the way that we're trying to form these is that someone may be a host and they may not be a strong leader, but within their group, somebody does tend to lead. Somebody else may be the one that, in the context of the meeting, they tend to be the one to step out and go, hey, we need to draw this to a conclusion. We want to develop that however it works that way. Then, curriculum. I'm just throwing out some stuff I thought you might want to know in case you haven't heard this stuff. From a curriculum perspective, we also do not dictate at this time what the curriculum is. We have a sheet, and I didn't bring one, but a suggested curriculum list. And I think there's about 16 DVD-based curriculums on there. One or two of them may not have DVDs, they're just books. But and we make that available. Everything on that list are things that we feel like accomplish what our goal is, provoking people to live out the gospel in their context. All of those we own, the chapel owns, and they're available to be checked out in the chapel bookstore at no cost. Of course, the groups have to purchase, if they want booklets or those kind of things that go with them, they have to purchase those, but the DVDs can be checked out at no cost. If people want to use something other than what's on that list, they can do that. That's okay. They just have to pay for it. And there's nothing bad about that at all. There is not currently really a filter for that even. People say, do I have to get it approved by you? Currently, there is not. People do. They'll call me and say, hey, we're checking into this. What do you think about that? And just in short, we could do a whole conversation about that in general, but in short, my approach with that is I would prefer to help people if drama ever came up within a group because of something being taught. I would personally prefer to help them know how do I navigate differences with brothers and sisters rather than me just telling them which thing is right. That may bite us a little bit. I'm willing to adjust on that as we go forward. Again, we're trying all this stuff out. We're trying to figure out how can we give people space to lead and trust that the Holy Spirit's within them and be able to navigate through those kind of partnerships. But that's how the curriculum thing works. All right, so that's some of the things I just wanted to throw down at the beginning. I'm just going to jump in according to this. Do you want me to write it or do you want to write it?
Yeah, if you want to write it, if you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
If you know how to write.
I do. It's not as legible as yours because you do it a lot more often. But all right, so on greater body partnership, there's one thing to consider, and this will make more sense as we get over in the middle section, but one thing that's unique about this is Circle Groups is not a ministry that has small groups as a component. That's all that it is. So that's something to keep in mind as you process this. So in some ways, we won't feel like we need to accomplish particular things because that's not specifically what this is about. And then in other ways, just the nature of what it is means it's going to more likely produce certain things. It's not because there's anybody brilliant behind the wheel. It's just because it is a small group. That's what it is. So, all right. So with Circle Groups, Greater Body Partnership, one of the things that is a positive is that there are people in groups from various churches.
Oh, here you go. It was a trick.
Yeah, thanks.
You're already messing this up, Mike.
I already did. All right, so the people, I'm going to do...
Yep, sorry.
No, that's all right. People from various churches. This is something, and not just various churches, but I'll put outside chapel. Because one of the things that I am constantly communicating, even when people come and at first they say, hey, I want to get plugged into a group, some of my first questions are, what about if you hosted one? Do you have any friends that you know that maybe they may go to the chapel, they're not involved, maybe they don't go to the chapel, but they live close to you, and they may be willing to come do something like this at your house? Or do you know somebody at work or somebody? So from the beginning, the emphasis is trying to get them to, because often they just think, I'm going to get involved in this and get plugged in, rather than us from the very beginning helping them know, hey, you have a responsibility to just kind of look around at your life and say, what's around me, kind of what's in my hand and what opportunities do I have. So I promote this a lot to say, hey, it doesn't necessarily have to be chapel people. Jonathan and I, the other day, talked about, even with the notes that go with the message handouts in the bulletin, about tweaking the language even a little bit more so that the sheet doesn't refer to the sermon. It's still talking about the same content, so that in these groups, if someone's involved and they do not attend the chapel, they don't have to have Jerry's message in the back of their mind as they anticipate this, so that it opens it up to more kind of geographically based community and mission rather than just, hey, we all go to the chapel. So there's a great opportunity, and there's tremendous opportunity for that to explode. I mean, as we think about going forward in our partnerships in the region, these are natural little satellites where people from other ministries that are partners with ours could engage at greater levels. We don't really know what that looks like. There's possibilities, but great opportunity there. A negative with that is I don't really know how many there are. I know there are some, but I don't manage who's in all the groups. Like once we get them in, we don't keep like, in those 83 groups, who's involved in those. I don't see the value in managing it, first of all, but it would be a nightmare to be able to constantly keep up with that. So really don't know how we're doing on that from, are we intentionally getting other people involved? So that's for sure a negative. Another thing from Greater Body Partnerships is I mentioned that some of these groups do service projects together. So they may say, hey, as a group, we're going to all together go to the mission once a month. Or there's one that I filmed a video that we'll release pretty soon, but they all do a nursing home together once a month, to where they get together as a group and they go and serve people in the nursing home. That's great. Others just go, hey, this opportunity came up. We heard about this announcement. There's this one-time gig. Let's all go do that together. Others don't do that, and that's okay. This isn't the goal with these groups necessarily. This is one way that the groups can do what we're shooting for. But we want to make sure that they know which ones of these are available. So I will make a video and send it out to different hosts saying, hey, if you were to go to the city mission, here's the lady you would speak with, here's the volunteer coordinator, here's kind of what it looks like, here's the opportunities. Put it all in their hand, give them their contact information. It's not through me to them, but tell them exactly what that would look like so that we're putting that before them. And people do this in a lot of ways. I do ask about this. I have kind of a spreadsheet where I manage current groups, and I ask them, do they do projects together, and if so, where? And it's incredible the number of things that people are involved in, some kind of official and ongoing, some gave me some examples of things they've done before. That's a way that they can partner with other ministries in the area or other opportunities to kind of serve with the greater body. Negative with that as well is that I need to get more opportunities in front of them. Now this can be tricky because with small groups, Bob, you know this is true, I get constant like, hey, can you shoot this out to all the small group leaders? You know what I mean? Leroy and I were talking about this yesterday. What I don't want to be is like the advertisement for everything that anybody wants to do, right? And that can be tough to navigate because these are all good causes, and we've got to figure out how do we filter that. But for sure, I kind of started with 2, and then I've gone 3 months, I think, without putting one out. My goal was once a month to let them know about some service opportunity that they might get involved in. Do you want me to pause here?
Is there a list of those opportunities somewhere that people can look over, or is it just through like
Yeah,
one-time?
well, we have like chapel-wide the ministry partners, right? So that is listed on the website. There's a place where they can go for that, and I've sent a few people there. The ones that I'm specifically talking about here are on our YouTube page. So there's like it's a channel, and right now there's only 2, but there's 2 opportunities that are there, and it says service opportunities, and it's got kind of a video created about that. I will increase it there. We do want to make another list like that because there might be places that the chapel doesn't want to officially partner with, but we could have a list of 200 possible things that groups could do. John Cook and I have touched base on that. We do not have that yet. That's an opportunity. One of the things I want to be careful of, though, is I don't want to overwhelm people. Like, if they're just kind of getting started into looking into it and I give them a list of 200 things, that can be overwhelming. So I don't really know. I do want to have this list at least. I don't know how much to make it public, but I at least want to have it for myself. So that as I'm talking to people and they express passions, I can go, hey, there's this.
What you might be able to do, as you archive this, you might be able to categorize the archive. So, oh yeah, this fits under, homeless related stuff, or this is house related, whatever. It might be, maybe that could minimize the overwhelm factor.
Homeless related and house related. Those could be the 2 main.
Exactly. It's a dichotomous for the homeless and for the housed. That's it.
That's it. Those 2 gotta be right.
There you go.
All right, I'm gonna jump on, and if you have something, just throw it in. Interdependent leadership or interdependence. One of the things that, again, some of this is new, so it's our hope that this produces a certain opportunity. So I really can't measure it very well yet. But one of the reasons for intentionally going kind of with the flat host type structure was twofold. One, just practically, to where I'm not spending so much of my time constantly looking for people that kind of hit this certain level for leadership. You know what I mean? Because we know, and there's a time for that, so I'm not saying that's bad, but I'm saying those of us who do that know that that is a lot of work, right? And it's good work. But in this situation, I didn't think it was necessary, especially in light of the fact that we're just trying to get, these people, if you've seen the logo, the way we did it, and this is going to be a bad group, but each of those represent different, that's awful, different people's circles of influence. And when we come together, it's just a time for us to provoke each other to go back into it and represent. So it's not as much like we come together and this leader guy is going to tell us all how to go on our walk. But rather, they're going to come together, engage in something, and then they're going to be back on their own in their circles, right? With varying levels of leadership opportunities and stuff like that. So I felt like in this situation, it wasn't necessary. Now, from an interdependent standpoint, it definitely gives opportunity for different people to rise up within the groups based on their giftedness and based on their passions. And the looseness in not dictating this allows for even the identity of the group between this one and this one to be very, very different based on those people. And I don't have to constantly fight for hyper structure. You know what I mean? Like, no, it has to be 15 minutes of prayer, and and that kind of thing. And Bob and I talked about, for a while we kind of did a 20%, 60-20 kind of thing. And we just decided, hey, that was great for what it served, but let's just kind of scrap that and just constantly communicate these things and let it become whatever it becomes within those groups, because people's needs are different. So it's very possible for a group to look very, very different than what I may think is ideal, but I want to maintain that relationship so that I can constantly be speaking these kind of philosophies into those houses. So anyway, so this, I think, gives opportunity for people's individual gifts to come out. I don't know. Just from interdependence, from a fact standpoint, we direct people to all of our ministries. Again, if someone emails us and they're 18, 19 years old, right in there's no question, it's more likely that they're going to be involved in vintage. They can be in a circle group, but it's less likely they're going to get what they need out of it. Now, there are some. Even recently, I've had a couple of college-age kids who are just like, I just want to be around older people. I want to learn from them, that kind of thing. Well, circle groups are an opportunity for them to be able to do that because they're not necessarily married couples or anything like that. It may be harder for us to also find a group willing to accommodate that. You know what I mean? But it does happen. So we direct people to other ministries from that perspective. Now, negative is there's not been a way for hosts to learn from each other. At least currently, I still don't have a good way. Yeah, I should not be writing this. That's okay. Give me something to do. I'm waiting. Hosts can't learn from each other. With that many groups, if you have 83 groups, most of them are hosted by couples. So if I looked at a gathering, and Bob's done these before, you try to gather all those people at one time, that's a lot of people. And it's expensive, right? And then I think it's just less effective than it could be where we're doing activities and songs and all this kind of preparation. I do think maybe once a year, and I'm still kind of considering that we do gather everybody together just for the sake of teamwork. Hey, just to remind you, there's a lot of other people doing what you're doing. But I'm not even convinced about that yet. Because in that environment, hosts wouldn't be learning from each other as much anyway, unless I brought someone up to give one story. I can do that via video, though. I can pass those stories out that way. Our hope right now is Facebook.
That'd be awesome if you said the city. John like passes out.
Most, one of the things that has been cool and shocking to me, because we do have a variety of ages within these groups, is that I think everybody but one of our hosts uses email. Now, they use it in varying capacities, right? Some people are like, oh, I just saw that, you sent it 2 months ago, kind of thing. And then some are like within 5-minute response. But at least they all use that. Facebook is a different beast, as everyone knows. There's just, some people are like, that's wicked, you know? Me and Jerry don't do that kind of thing.
And that's exactly how they say it.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm hoping that this helps for some of that.
You could use Facebook.
Yes, amen.
Praise him.
To be honest, I don't get a lot of people who are going, I'd really like to get together for other ideas from other hosts. There are a couple. Some people do say that. So my hope is that people feel like, hey, I'm okay. I got this. If you send me an idea, I'll be motivated by it and inspired by it, but my life is busy. Let me just do what I do. So that's kind of what that is. Anything else on that before I jump down here? All right. Geographic intentionality is really what the entire new concept is about. Again, this is just a tweak from what small groups have been. It's not like it's a big difference, but we definitely tweaked some things to be more focused on this, in that the name change and all of our communication are centered on the idea of you representing in your circle. So when it comes to, obviously, geographically, all of our communication focuses on this. Again, I've got it all typed out. You'll get kind of the longer versions of these words here. So, you know, the whole idea of you being intentional about looking at where around your house or in the place that you work and figuring out what would it look like if I represented the gospel well right here. Not how can I brainstorm a new, you know, nonprofit organization, which some people should do that, and there are people with those kind of passions. But there's a whole lot of people, I think, that are thinking they should do that, and they probably shouldn't, and they're neglecting what's going on right around them, their neighbors and those kind of things. So from a positive standpoint, that's where all the communication is going. Also, groups are formed primarily around geography. And that's done, not that it has to be that way, because you can come together, people can drive from all over the county, meet together, and be provoked to go back into their individual circles and represent the gospel. So it's not a bad thing if they don't live closer together. But the assumption is that if you do live closer together, you're more likely to do things together, and you're more likely to engage the same groups of people. You know, you guys both go to the same coffee shop, you know, at different times, but it just seems like a greater probability of saturation if we were forming them as close to the same geography as possible. Can't totally control that. We talk about owning a neighborhood or a bowling alley or a workplace or something as an option to consider, not the only one. One of the negatives or opportunities is it'd be helpful if I were to give kind of more clearly highlight how it might look. I'm going to put communicate how it might look. I say that in general, but just talking about something, and usually I throw out the same kind of two possibilities. I think I say bowling alley a lot. I don't know if anybody actually bowls. Does anybody bowl? But you do. But a way to kind of show a diversity of how those things might look. Again, John coming in and helping me with this front end process is going to free me up a little bit of time. You know, to be able to focus on those things and to get into the places where people are doing that and capture video and stories and things like that to be able to share with others. Of course, them knowing that they don't have to exactly do what these people are doing, but to be able to give them ideas. All right, anything else on this? Some of this will play into these over here as well, so we can jump back with it too. All right, for formation. Now, for all of these, the curriculum is selected based on how it communicates these 4 outcomes. A couple weeks ago when we were in discussion, you know, I thought, man, I need to actually place those on the curriculum sheet, and I'm going to do that. So, whereas I've considered all of these and how I chose them, I'm going to make it even more plain so that people are familiar with this kind of language, so that on the curriculum sheet they are categorized underneath those headings, so that they can go, oh, we'll do one out of here or one out of here if they want to. If you've managed groups like that, people do what they want to do with curriculum. So we just suggest heavily. So the curriculum is around all of those. So I mean, we can just do that, and there's definitely curriculum for each of those, and I'll touch on them individually. So for intimacy with God, there's intentional curriculum on a consistent rhythm. So one of the ways that this helps people develop that is most are 2 times a month, some are once a month, very few are every week as far as the frequency that these groups meet. For most people, I think twice a month is best, and that's what most people do. So what this opportunity, what Circle Groups provides is, even in the business of a schedule, there is a consistent time where you are considering, hey, how am I doing in pursuing God? So again, the answer is not curriculum, but you can't push that out altogether, as we know. Part of this is a study, and so this provides a consistent rhythm for them to be able. You know what? Can you write this up?
Absolutely.
That way I can just read and you can rephrase.
Yeah.
A consistent rhythm for them to be able to engage in that kind of material. Another thing with intimacy with God is that circle groups are a natural time for people to express prayer concerns. When I recommend, again, I say, hey, flexibility in how you structure your evening, but I recommend kind of a 45-minute hangout / eat / talk about basketball / get to know each other time. And then about 45 minutes, I recommend 2 hours, but people do it differently. 45 minutes hangout, 45 minutes content, so the video, the conversation, prayer if they're going to do that, and then the last 30, whatever their group prefers, more content, more prayer, more hangout, just kind of doing those things afterwards. So prayer concerns. Then people also get exposed to a variety of perspectives and approaches, which makes some people uncomfortable, but I think it's very good. Any of us who are involved in any groups like this know that there are awkward moments, right? Where you're just going, wow, I totally disagree with what that person just said. And you're having to manage, is it my responsibility as a brother to express my opinion? Is this where I'm just quiet and learn? And I think those are good things for us to be around and not just hear people who are saying the same things as us and we're all just going, that's right. Yeah, we all agree, we all believe the same thing here. So it exposes them, gives them a greater appreciation and a broader view of the body. All right, Christ-like relationships. Again, there's the intentional curriculum around those. Christ-like relationships are pretty easy to find curriculum for. Intimacy with God is easy to find curriculum for. Even stuff that would use similar language to ours and kind of point people in the same direction. So with Christ-like relationships, scheduled times to build relationships. Now, so that's one of the positives of it. Not everyone needs to be in a group. You guys have heard me say that. So some people do have relationships. They don't need this kind of group. They have other people that they're engaged with, whether it's officially in another ministry or unofficially just in their friendships. So we're not trying to prescribe something that's not necessary for everyone. But we do hope that whatever we create can be a positive opportunity for those people who feel like they need to add that, right? So it does give that opportunity. What did I put here? Consistent communication, on relationships that provoke us to action. I use the word provoke. The word provoke is kind of a strong word in and of itself, even if you say it nicely, like provoke. It still is like, like you were going along, it's like, whoa. But I constantly talk about relationships that provoke us to action. I pat it on the soft side because I do think that this should be more relationship. But it's that constant communication that, man, the right kind of relationships and the right kind of friends are not just places where you can go, everything you do is okay with me, but rather people that when you get around, you're better because of it. And you may use words they don't use or vice versa, and you may watch things that they don't watch or vice versa, but nonetheless, you want that relationship to be one that actually provokes you to do something.
I provoke you to talk about spiritual gifts.
I will. Here's a negative. Or an opportunity. there's a tension between finding, I'm going to read it and then you can decide how to read it. Tension between finding people that work well together versus learning to appreciate and deal with difference.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, people, I talked about the positive of people having different perspectives. Well, that's good for us, and we need to learn. You know, our church partners with churches that teach some things very differently than we do. And we learn to navigate those things. So it seems to make sense that consistency demands that we allow that, a degree of that from within as well. And not even from a perspective of we know better and we hope you arrive there, but a sincere humility that says, I want to hear from what you have to say, because truth can stand scrutiny, and I'm not nervous about, you know, God chewing his nail kind of thing. So there's, within a group, you'll have sometimes where people say, oh, I just don't really fit in there, or I don't really like this person, they're different. Well, there's a degree of, yeah, but come on, work at it, help that person, you know what I mean? If they're obnoxious. But then there's also the thing of, like, I look at myself personally, if something's just a pain in the butt, man, I got a lot going on. I don't want to waste my time with people that they hold the same opinion, they're not open, they won't listen. So acknowledging both of those is a tension that I kind of have to manage as I'm starting these new groups. I don't really know like what an action step is on that, but just by way of either negative or opportunity, it's something within Christ-like relationships. Like, how do you be Christ-like, and when do you just say, man, the Jesus thing to do is say, you know, I got to go to the next town, or whatever, you know, kind of deal. So, but it's something that I manage, so.
Yeah,
All right.
that's good.
Spiritual gifts. Again, it provides opportunities for people to develop community and influence others based on their particular gifting. Again, that just speaks to kind of the openness of the structure. It allows people to be able to obviously step out as the leader or the facilitator within the context. Some groups may have nobody that's passionate about a project, but some do. And sometimes this kind of goes back to managing the relationship. Sometimes that person who's all about projects can be obnoxious to the other people. So there is a time for that person to go, hey, you know what, that's not the best group for you. Let's put you with these people who also want to go launch this nonprofit, you know what I mean? And you guys go do that together, because that would be the best thing. So, and then a negative, we're weak on curriculum for this. This is hard to find stuff that's engaging, that's not just at the end of it, you just know which category you're in, you know what I mean? But to really go, why this? I mean, other than, you know, we did 3 weeks of this, and I think that stuff would be helpful, but it's probably something that I probably need to, or that we need to create in-house, so that the language is the same, and so that it provokes us to those. So there's a need for that there. I looked at our current list. 2 of the curriculums we recommended are kind of go there, like they sort of touch on it. And several, it's assumed that you're operating in your giftedness, but none of them are just about that. So that's a negative in developing gifting there. All right, Grace story. Positives, conversations within the group meetings give opportunities for people to share bits and pieces of their story consistently over time. Again, one thing to consider with this is that these groups, our hope is that they're made up of a variety of faith perspectives even. This is the place where I'm constantly saying, hey, that neighbor that would never come to church, but they might come to your house. So these may be people that are just kind of barely interested. Maybe they're more interested in the person because they've been a good neighbor and they've had a relationship. This may be kind of that way for them to invite them over and say, hey, we're gonna study. Don't worry, it's gonna be kind of light. We're not gonna be all like the rest of us gathering around, whatever. So the hope is that the context that they're in is an opportunity for them in bits and pieces throughout conversations to be able to share part of their story.
That's actually an interesting thing happened to me last night. Well, John and I were at this picnic for foster parents for Gateway, and by the end of the night, I had 3 intentional conversations with other foster families about why we do this. And it was very clear, our faith is what motivates us to do this. There's really nothing else. And it was funny because coming out of that, we were the last one to leave. Kelly was still there, and she's like, I'm just fascinated by how your faith motivates guys like you and John and your families to do this. And we were walking away thinking, I wonder if we should just start a a spiritual group, you know, or that sounded really bad, but that sounded very like Unitarian. I didn't mean for, but like a spiritual interest group, seeking group about the Christian perspective and just our sphere of influence with fostering. And like Kelly was like, I so want to come to the chapel and get more involved and hear more about why you guys are doing this. And I just thought it was kind of an interesting thing. And we didn't get the full Grace story in that, but we got partial bits of our Grace story into that conversation that led there last
Sure.
night. So it was kind of cool.
No, that's good. Well, and I'm gonna say this now because I don't have it on my notes, and you
Yeah.
provoked me to. I don't know if
Yeah,
I'll remember to get back, but in light of what he's saying, what I'm trying to communicate, and obviously people hear things differently, so that's why repetition, same thing. You're like, some people who are quicker on that are going, shut up, you know what I mean, to what I'm saying. But what I'm hoping is that people grow in their understanding of this concept of my individual life. And this, you know, not necessarily here, but, you know, just, I've been involved in 2 groups, which is like the height of hypocrisy, because I constantly tell people don't get involved in multiple groups. But I also am glad that I put that piece on there, but like, I can't claim to know what you should do. And in our situation, the circumstance that led us to the second group, it was the right thing for us to do to engage in a particular conversation. But recently, we've realized, and we've been developing relationships with, we only have one actual neighbor that lives there, but then Starbucks employees across the street, when, you know, we take them food, we get to know them, find out when their due date is, pregnancy, that kind of thing. And so we've kind of become friends. So now we go in, they're like, hey, neighbor, kind of thing. And, you know, the manager, Chris, who John knows, is become a good friend of ours. We'd like to have her over. When? You know, I mean, we're trying to navigate our own schedule, and we try to keep some days open for our family so that we can be what we should be as parents. And then I got to have, you know, free time to make stupid videos. I mean, we got to manage all that time well.
Stupid video time is important.
Exactly.
Very important.
So the group that we're hosting at our house yesterday, we decided to kind of pull out of that. So I emailed everyone in our group, and I love all these people. They're good friends of ours. They were friends before we started. They'll still be friends afterwards. But I said, hey, for us, the rhythm that we're on, this is just, you know, this is something we should do to be able to manage our time well. And so I said, at our next meeting, it'll be our last one. We'll meet together and talk about options for everyone else. You know, you guys can still go on as the same group and be hosted at someone else's house. I can help you start new ones. You can say, right now, it's not good for my family, whatever. So, but by doing that and exposing people to that kind of mindset and knowing it's not personal, it's not because I'm tired of hanging out with you. It's because right now, the rhythm, we've been meeting for 10 months. It's just the right thing for now. I hope that provokes people to also do the same thing. So, again, that had nothing to do with that right there necessarily.